There are three common ways that we can alter the processing of group policy. One of those ways is block inheritance. If you look at this graphic right now, I have an OU NYC. This OU has a sub-OU, or some people call them a child OU. Finance, HR, marketing, and sales. So all of these sub-OUs here, they will automatically inherit this GPO because it's linked to NYC and they are under the NYC OU. So whatever setting I define in this GPO named desktop settings, I know it's going to apply to all four of those organizational units. Now let's say I don't want it to apply to sales. Then what you can do is go to sales and you can block inheritance. If I do that, sales will get no GPOs from above. The only settings that will ever apply to sales have to be linked directly to the sales organizational unit. So they get nothing from NYC. They get nothing from the domain or any of the higher level settings if you block inheritance. The other is enforced. An enforced policy alters the processing order is what it actually does. So let's say I create a GPO at the domain level. I'm going to call it security settings. And you link that GPO at the domain level. So it just shows up here with your default domain policy. Well, what happens? That GPO, if it's linked at the domain level, it applies to every OU in the entire domain, which in turn means every user, every computer processes this policy. Well, let's say the concern, I have to make sure if you are below me, meaning you're in one of these organizational units, this policy has to apply to you no matter what. We established a moment ago that the processing order was local site domain OU, and the OU policy was the most powerful, meaning if there was a conflict, the OU policy would win. Well, what I can do, I can go to my domain level policy and I can enforce it. Now the domain level policy actually trumps the OU level policy and is more powerful. So if I enforce that security settings, you could have a conflicting policy below, but it does not matter once it's enforced. The domain policy would still win. So that's the way just to kind of alter that processing order. The last setting we have, security filtering. Security filtering lets you filter this to certain users and groups. By default, if you link a policy, like my HR application settings, that is linked to the HR OU. This GPO will apply to all users, all computers in the HR organizational unit. If I wanted this to apply only to a specific group, maybe you have a managers group. So we'll say HR managers. If that's a group, you could go to this policy and say this policy only applies if you are a member of this group. If you're not, it does not apply to you. Well, let's take a look at how all three of these are configured in the interface.